Hi everybody, Ellen here. Today I come to you guys with my April wrap-up, and I did read 15 books, which is almost as many as I read when I did not work full-time. I'm really happy about that because I feel like I'm back on track. But yeah, now I'm going to tell you guys what I read and what I thought about them, just as usual. So I read Alice in Wonderland, which is the Little Golden Book by Disney, and this is, Alice in Wonderland, but it is made out from the movie, so it's really short, but it has the pages from the movie, and it's really short and compact version of the story. So if you have not read the original Alice, you may be a little bit confused, but I mean it's turned out pretty well anyways. So I give this one 5 out of 5 stars because it's Alice related. And then I also read The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. This is the first book in Percy Jackson and the Olympians. This is actually the graphic novel version, which I've been wanting to read for so long. So now I've read it also. So this is made by the artwork is made by Attila Futaki and the color by Jose Villarrubia. Totally butchered that, but oh well. So we have the pictures. So this is a graphic novel. I have read the original book before, loved it, and it was just so much fun to see it in picture form this time around. And it was a really quick read, and I did not want to put it down, obviously, because it's Percy Jackson. Who does not love Greek mythology and Percy Jackson? Like, I mean, come on. So, since I love Greek mythology, I love Rick Riordan, I love Percy Jackson, I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. And then I also read The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert, and in this one we meet Alice, and her grandmother actually wrote these sort of fairy tales that are kind of creepy. And Alice's mother disappears, tells her not to go into the Hazelwood. Her grandma dies, which is what started the whole shebang, and Alice of course goes into the Hazelwood, so shit goes down. So this was really interesting. I love the fairy tale aspect of it. I like the characters, although there was a little bit about the transportation part. I mean, it's move from point A to point B, which sort of makes it drag a little bit for me. I don't really like that kind of story, but they did have a lot of good parts, which is why I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And then we have Scythe by Neil Schusterman, which I know a lot of people have talked about, especially recently when book 2 came out. So in this book, the world is sort of perfected, you can say, because nobody can die, not by age, not by murder. You can't die by disease or anything like that. The only way for you to die is if you get killed by the Scythe. So we meet Citra and Rowan, and they actually are kind of forced to become Scythe apprentices. They don't really want to, but they don't really have a lot of choice. So they get to learn the fine art of being a Scythe, and the thing is, only one of them can become the Scythe in the end, so they have to sort of, who is the best of one of them. I did really like it, although I felt like it was maybe a little bit longer than it needed to be, but I did give this one 4 out of 5 stars. And we have Trance of Morgan Cry, which is book 1 in Nevermore. I don't really know how many books it's going to be, but I do know a second book is coming. This is written by Jessica Towns, and this is a middle grade. We meet Morgan Cry, who is born on the most unlucky day in this world. She's blamed for everything that goes wrong because she was born on this unlucky day. She is considered cursed, so everything is her fault no matter what happens. But then she's also doomed to die on the eve of her 11th birthday. But before she is supposed to die, she actually gets whisked away by this dude, and he takes her to Nevermore, which is this sort of magical, whimsical kind of world. And it's awesome, and there's a talking cat in it, which was like the best part. But I did really like this book. I did not connect as much with the characters as I would have liked to, but I really did like the story, and I did like the characters, just not as much as I would have liked. But I did give this one 4 out of 5 stars. Pivot Point by Casey West. This is like the second to last unread book I have by her. I'm so sad. Now I only have one left. Oh my god. But this is her actually a sort of fantasy novel. So we meet Addison, and she lives in this place where everybody has some kind of power, really. So Addison can do this search thing, which means that if she is forced to make a choice of some kind, she can search for the future and see which of the two options she should choose, because, you know, which one is the better choice for her. So that's pretty much what she can do. If you get the gist of it, it's hard to explain. But she has to decide. Her parents are getting a divorce. She has to decide which parent she's supposed to live with, because her father wants to move out to the norm, you know, the normal people with no powers, while her mother stays in the place where Addison grew up. So she has to decide which parent she would like to live with, and for that, to be able to make that choice, she actually does this search, and she finds out that none of her futures are, you know, desirable, but she has to choose which one to, you know, end up with, really. I thought that I wouldn't like this as much as I did. I love Casey West, but I have only read her contemporary novels before. But I love the gist of it. I like the power aspect, and a lot of people had different powers, which was awesome. And I like the fact that you get to, the search was such a big part of it. And I want to continue reading book 2, Split Second, which I have ordered. Hopefully we'll get home to me soon. But I love it really, really much. So I gave this book a very strong 4 out of 5 stars. And then we come to technically the last book I finished this month, which is Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in the series trilogy called The Reckoners, which is actually technically the first book I finished by Brandon Sanderson. I have read a graphic novel by him before, but this is the first like full-length book, which is actually one of his short ones. But in this one we meet David, and he lives in this sort of dystopian kind of world, you could say, because where he lives there's people called the Epics, and they, you know, came about after the thing called Calamity, which no one's really sure what the hell happened there. But the Epics have different kind of superpowers, really, and the guy in charge, who has been so for the last decade, is Steelheart. And Steelheart is actually the dude that killed David's dad, so obviously he wants revenge. But to be able to get his revenge, because Steelheart is supposed to be, you know, kind of, you know, hard to kill, David has to align himself with the Reckoners, who are also trying to kill off Epics, because they're kind of evil people. So I really like this book a lot more than I thought I would, because I'm scared of Brandon Sanderson's books. Is always so huge and kind of dense, but this one was so good. I love the superpowers. It reminds me a little bit of the Renegades. This one technically came out first, but still. I love the superpowers element. I love the characters. I was constantly surprised what the hell was going on. I did manage to anticipate some things before it happened, though, so I mean, kudos to me. But it was really, really good, and I gave this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. And then we have some Rick Riordan, because how could we not? We need a lot. We have 3 in this wrap-up, actually, so... but this is The Hidden Oracle by Rick Riordan, which is book 1 in the Trials of Apollo, which is a book I've been wanting to read for like forever, and I finally did. This one we meet the god Apollo. He has been cast down to earth by Zeus, his dad, because he did something wrong. If you want to find out what he did wrong, read the Heroes of Olympus series, and preferably Percy Jackson before that. But Zeus is angry at Apollo. He's cast down to earth as this mortal teenager called Lester. And he's sort of this pimply, gangly teenager who's sort of awkward in his own body, really. But this one is really funny, because Apollo can't stop thinking like the immortal, gorgeous god he used to be. And it's really funny. And we also meet this girl named Meg, who is a demigod, who actually takes sort of Apollo under her wing figuratively speaking. And you get to find out more about Meg, who her godly parent is, which I totally called it. I knew it. So that was really fun. But I also like the fact that Meg and Apollo kind of clash a lot in the beginning, but then they sort of, they kind of become friends, and there's a lot of shit that are hard to predict, although I did predict some things. But I really did like it. But I did feel like something was missing. I felt like it wasn't really as eventful as Rick Riordan's other books have been. Which is probably just me having way too high expectations of the book. But I did give this a 4 out of 5 stars. Ta-da! Hi, cutie cute. And then we have the third and final Rick Riordan book I'm going to talk about today. But that is The Throne of Fire by Rick Riordan, and it is book 2 in the Kane Chronicles, which is a trilogy, so we'll have 1 book left, which is awesome. But this one we meet Carter and Sadie, who are brother and sister, and they find out that they have kind of godly powers, and that Egyptian gods are real, and that they have to save the world, which pretty much sums up all of Rick Riordan's books, but it's good. So this one we once again get to follow Carter and Sadie on their adventures. They have recorded everything that happens, and that's pretty much what you get to base the story out of, because you're technically listening to the story being told by Carter and Sadie. We get to meet some new characters in this book, which I really did like. I love the fact that we get to know the characters better. We get to find out more about the gods and everything like that. But this is still not my favorite Rick Riordan series, unfortunately, and I feel like that is why I'm not rating these books as high as I have previous series, because high expectations. But I did give this 4 out of 5 stars, so it's still really good. We come to some review books I read, and we have Anna-Lisas Val by Eli Åman Ovets, which is a book I got from Bokfabriken. So we have Annalisa, and she owns this sort of antique shop, and she also starts like being on the antique sales, sort of the one with the club, good English word for it. But she auctions off different old things, and she is married to she's engaged to this guy called Rutger, who is sort of a count. So he has this big, huge ass freaking place to live in. And then we have Ralph, who is actually a sort of fling she had when she was backpacking through Sweden, and she has to figure out pretty much which guy she wants to be with. So this is not typically my kind of genre I read, so I had a little bit of trouble with rating it, and I'm not that much for love triangles, but I still did like the characters and I love the kind of antique shop aspect of it, so I did give this one 3 out of 5 stars. Then we have Soma Core, which is written by Olseni and Hansen, and this is a review book from Bokfabriken as well. This one we meet Esther Karlsson, and she is 78 years old, and one day there's a dead guy in the attic, and Esther is one of the people who kind of finds him, and while the police is trying to figure out who killed him, Esther tries to solve the case herself. Problem is that the neighbors start to suspect Esther because she's asking all of these kind of questions. So I feel like this is a mixture, like if Kaffe med rån, which is a Swedish book, if Kaffe med rån and Miss Marple, which is Agatha Christie book, if those two had a love child, then that would be this book. So I mean, it was funny, it has some great characters, but I felt like it was maybe a teeny tiny too long. But I gave this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. The Upside of Unbreakable by Becky Albertalli. And this one we meet Molly Peskin-Suso. She's had 26 uncredited crushes, meaning she's never been brave enough to do anything about them because she's afraid of being turned down. And we also have her twin sister Cassie, who actually gets her first real girlfriend, and the girlfriend comes with this cute hipster sidekick called Will, and Cassie and her girlfriend are trying to set Molly up with this guy, but Molly also happens to work with this guy called Reed, who is dorky, very tall, and very, very funny. So it's sort of, you know, how does the feelings go in her mind? So I really do love this book still. I feel like it grows on me even more. So I give this book 5 out of 5 stars. Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli is the second time I read this book, and I annotated it and I loved every minute of it, even though I defaced the book, but you know, I'm learning. So in this one we meet Simon Spear. He's 16 years old, and for the past couple of months he has been emailing this guy named Blue. Blue and Simon actually goes to the same high school, but they do not know who the other person is. One day Simon forgets to log out of his Gmail account where he's emailing Blue, and this guy named Martin actually finds those emails and threatens to spread them around the school. And for him not to do that, he actually sort of blackmails Simon into helping him, you know, get a footing with this girl he likes. So it's sort of, it's amazing. And obviously I give it 5 out of 5 stars, because how can I not? Then I also read Far From the Tree by Robin Benway, and this is a contemporary novel, and we meet Grace, Maya and Joaquin. Is that how you say it? I don't even know. But they were, Maya and Grace were adopted, and Joaquin was sort of in and out of the system for many, many years, and they happen to be half siblings. So they actually find out about each other, and they try to, you know, sort of build a relationship together, try to get to know each other, become, you know, they want to know their siblings really, and then they try to figure out who their mom was and why she put them up for adoption and stuff like that. And I really like this book. The characters were very, very different, but you can still see similarities between them, marking them as siblings. And they were really funny and sort of serious at the same time, and I love the fact that they had a very different kind of upbringing and how much that affected them, but they're still like able to, you know, get to know each other and trust each other, and was just really beautifully written. And I give this book 4 out of 5 stars. And we have the 15th and the last book, and that is Story Thieves by James Riley. This is a middle grade book that I actually listened to the audiobook of. In this one we meet Bethany and Owen. And Owen is in the middle of math class trying to figure out what is more boring than fractions. And he can't really come up with a lot. But at lunch he actually noticed something mysterious. This girl named Bethany, who actually happens to go in his class, are reading Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and she got chocolate all over the book, which is awful. But later on in the library he actually sees Bethany jump out of a book. How is that possible? But it turns out that Bethany's father is fictional, meaning her mother got it on with a fictional character. Weird, I know. But Owen is so fascinated by this, and he wants to take advantage of it because he wants to jump into his favorite book, which he himself describes sort of as a Harry Potter ripoff. And yes, I can see the similarities, but also there are very, very many different things between them. I really like this one. I liked the audiobook a lot too. The reader was really, really good. The characters are funny, they're kick-ass, there's magic, there's like jumping in and out of books. It was awesome. So I gave this book 4.5 stars, and I really look forward to listening to the second book in the series. So those were all the 15 books I read this month. If you have read any of these books before, please let me know down in the comments what you thought about them, without spoiling of course. And also, if you like this video, please don't forget to give me some thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe to my channel by clicking the little button down below. And yeah, I hope we see each other next time. Bye!